All
Hello,
right, we're
guys.
back again.
Yes, now we're doing, what are we doing?
Fashion meltdown. There was a
Yes,
lot of meltdowns this
a
week.
lot of drama, a lot of shit, a lot of people tried it.
Condé Nast, DVF laying off employees,
Mhm.
Daya Prada coming for everybody under the sun. So we are going to get into it all right.
Yes.
All right, let's get this PowerPoint together. All right, well, Anna go, probably never, probably going to die at Condé Nast. Anna sent a memo to the staff of Condé Nast and specifically of Vogue saying it's hard to be a person of color at this company. And basically, it was her mea culpa for Black Lives Matter and everything that we're talking about right now. But as Andre Leon Talley, which we'll get into later, a little bit later in the show, said best, Anna is a colonial broad. She is from a very upper crust British society, that was basically of the Victorian era. Her parents were born in the Victorian era. So this is very inbred in her. And I by no means think Anna Wintour is a racist, and she's definitely championed people of color in certain contexts. She really pushed for Naomi Campbell to be on the cover of Vogue during her tenure. Andre, being creative director, various Black models from, Chanel Iman. But on terms of staff and people she has on her staff, we've never really seen a large person of color demographic within Vogue or really within Condé Nast until recent years.
Yeah, that's a
So,
good point, though. That is a good point, that to say the distinction of she's not a racist, but she definitely doesn't, she's not racist, but she also doesn't actively make it a point to hire people
right.
of color,
And
though.
we're going to get into it in another slide from one of her former interns, who's now the fashion editor of a Chinese newspaper, and basically saying it's all the same demographics. It's all the girls from Spence and Columbia, tall, white, blonde hair, same thing, different year, since
Right.
the dawn of time, since 1988. And, our larger umbrella topic of this week is that if you don't have diversity in the top, as an editor in chief, as a creative director, senior fashion editor, sprinkled throughout the staff, you cannot talk about diversity and keep putting out these
Right.
canned statements about diversity without having diversity on your staff. You
Right.
don't need
Well, you know
diversity
what?
on.
There's a good way to break it down where I've heard people say, they said there's non-racist, which is you tolerate it but don't care enough to change.
Mm-hmm,
But then there's anti-racist,
mm-hmm,
which is you're actively fighting for
right.
change. And
Right.
I was just like, that's true. And I would say she's kind of just like, she's non-racist, no shade.
Yeah. And so, and
Because
by
if
no
she was
means,
anti-racist, she would have had more people of color in there.
yeah, do I think, she's the worst, person of all, running a Ku Klux Klan? I mean, certainly not.
No.
But she definitely could have done more. So
Yeah.
let's see some of the statements that people are making, people for her, against her, etc. So this has went on from everybody. I mean, this is the topic du jour this week. Anything this woman does is under a microscope. A few years ago during her daughter's wedding, they said that was going to be it. She was going to retire. The noise got really loud, so much so that Condé Nast had to put out a press release saying she's staying. So the New York Times, the headline, The Reckoning at Condé Nast. The Guardian, a British newspaper. Can Anna Wintour survive fashion's reckoning with racism? Page 6, Anna Wintour's job is safe amid Condé Nast diversity scandal. Even Marlo Hampton from The Real Housewives of Atlanta chimed in saying lip service from Anna Wintour is just not enough, which,
Although don't nobody need to hear anything from her, but yes.
but not that I think Marlo is like the end all be all of fashion by any way, shape, or form. But I
Yeah.
do agree with her statement of I'm tired of the canned statements. I'm
Yeah.
tired that we're going to do better. And this goes for a broader company wide. My friend works for Amazon, and it took them 6 days to make a statement saying they condone racism and condone all these things that happen. Amazon, 6 days.
They don't condone it, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, and that, how hard is it to write 30 words saying, this is wrong? I thought the people
Well,
who
isn't
really,
isn't no, I was gonna say, isn't the CEO Trump supporter or no? Let me make
No,
that
no,
up.
no.
That's not him.
Actually, the
Oh, okay.
CEO is quite close with Anna. So,
Oh, okay.
no, Jeff Bezos, no, he's not a Trump supporter. So it's mainly those people from those like middle American companies like Walmart and stuff like that, and Home
Well,
Depot.
no, because there's like McDonald's and a
Right.
lot of shit you wouldn't have expected.
That's a very fine line with them because a lot of those people are franchise people. So it's like, is the franchise donating money or is the corporation donating money? So
That's true.
that's been a tricky territory for a lot of people because a lot of those
Well,
franchises
yeah, because like,
owned
yeah,
by,
that's true. It's yeah, like because like Revlon's in there. They
yeah,
said Revlon was one of them.
exactly.
So yeah,
Like take Home Depot, for example. They are
Home
solely
Depot.
owned by one person, and that person is a big Trump supporter. And
Yeah,
that's why people are not supporting Home Depot and saying
yeah,
go to Lowe's. That's very cut and dry. The franchise
that's
fast
true.
food is a little tricky because a lot of those fast food places are owned by minorities,
That's
so
true.
franchises. So I want to be careful and not hurting that business for them. So
That's
not
true.
healthy, but nonetheless, their main source of money. So Roger Lynch, who's the newest CEO of Condé Nast, he's been there maybe about 2 years, had to come out with a statement saying, once again, Anna is staying. And he said, there are very few people in the world who can influence on change or culture as it relates to the activities that are our business has than Anna. Condé Nast CEO Roger Lynch said, the reason she is here is because she can help influence change that we need to make now. And I know she is committed to it. But in the wonderful words of the teenage artist JoJo, it's just a little too late. It's just
It's a little too late. But that being said, like I said, I don't. She's definitely not racist. I wouldn't say
right.
she's racist. I just think she's just so you like she just wasn't. She just didn't. It's almost she just almost didn't care enough to make diversity a point. So it's almost like if she liked you and you happen to be black, she's gonna fight for you, which is why she fought for Naomi Campbell and Andre. But she's also not apparently going to go out of her way to fight to bring diversity, which is a problem too, though. But it doesn't. But she's not. I wouldn't say she's racist at all. But she's also not going to go over. She's non-racist, but
Right.
she's not anti-racist per se. That's what I would break it down as.
Right, definitely. And so, of course, Andre Leon Talley had to chime in. Oh, actually, before we get to that, so we've just, Vogue, let's just face it, it's just been very stale and crusty for a few years now. Well, not for a few years, for at least a decade, if not more. It's been a long time since the magazine's been really exciting. And under Anna's tenureship as artistic director of Condé Nast, many magazines have folded, including Lucky, Glamour, even going back to, other subsidiary companies like so something obviously is very wrong. And the direction that Ronald and I both very much like is the direction that British Vogue is going in. We really love the use of models. We really love the use of people of color. We really love the minimalistic, sort of creative direction. And what I
Right.
particularly really love, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ronald, what I particularly really love about these 4 images that have been done under Edward is the woman, the girl is really shining through.
Right.
Nothing
But
is
like a
taking
but
away
as I
or
yeah, but like I told
overpowering it.
Shane.
I'm sorry,
Well,
go ahead.
oh no, I was saying like I told you though. It's well, first of all, it starts at the top. So since he's a person of color, he's going to make it a point to put these
Right.
people in place. And if you don't have a person of color in those positions, at least have someone who cares really strongly about it to make sure that the people on their team are making sure that diversity is represented. But going back to the difference between Anna and him, I would say, well, first of all, he's a stylist too. So I think his mind is going to be a little bit different than Anna's.
Right.
I mean, not to say Anna can't style. Sure, she could. But he's actually, he's been a stylist. So he's going to come at his shoots a little bit more hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Anna's kind of just like, she lets the team do it and then she'll approve things for the most part, where I feel like he's a little bit more hands-on in the whole process.
No, and you're exactly right. Anna is neither really a fashion editor, aka stylist, nor is she like a line editor.
Yeah,
She's a great manager. Even that
yeah, she's a
mousetrap she
manager, so
did
it's like
is on
we kind of
management.
can't compare the two. So I want to say his eye, quite frankly, is not necessarily better, but I'm just gonna say still say better.
Well, you said it
And
best in our previous conversation.
current,
His eye is very now. It's
yeah, and
very
his
of
eyes is
the
very
moment.
now too. Yeah,
Yeah.
not better because she has a great eye. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying his eye is very now and very editorial rounded. Like it's very editorial mind, and so it shows in the work. Whereas like she's not really doing much of it, and she's just approving things, and she's like, yeah. So he's a little bit more hands on in the process of what you're seeing in the end,
Yeah, and
from
I
the
would
start
say
to finish.
Edward is on the ground. Edward, did ID for a long time before,
Mm-hmm.
British Vogue, was a freelance stylist, worked very closely with Maisel at Italian Vogue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so much more of this moment,
Yeah, and
than
that's what I'm saying. But I don't.
British
But yeah,
Vogue.
but I want to make sure that I'm not sounding like ageist or anything too, because she's 70, yes, and I'm not saying that you can't be 70, keep up with the times. I would like to be that 70-year-old when it's, oh, that's what the kids are wearing. I want to adapt it into I want to adapt it into my work. Like I feel like as a stylist, but that again, I'm a stylist though. But I would like to make sure that I'm always staying current, just whether it be within my personal
Yeah.
style aesthetic or
Well,
when I'm working. So for her, I feel like she hasn't necessarily fully embraced now
mhm.
and where things are going now.
I mean, she really hasn't embraced anything going on really 20 years,
Yeah.
definitely the last 10, but just even using Karl Lagerfeld for, as an example, that was somebody who was curious till the day he died,
Mm-hmm.
photographing for magazines, looking at what was going on at other
Mm-hmm.
designers, looking at what was going on
Yeah,
in the
that's a perfect
street,
example. Yeah.
so it's not
So it's
really
not about
about
age, it's about your
age.
ability to keep up.
Yeah, you have to pivot in one way or
Mm-hmm.
another. You have to be in the zeitgeist of the moment if you're running a platform that is about information to people, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
But for her, it's almost like, well, I mean, it's been working and I'm still that
Right.
bitch, so I
Yeah,
don't need
she's
to.
well, let's go. Here's a wonderful picture of
Yeah.
Edward and Naomi. That's Edward, the editor-in-chief of British Vogue. He's very close to Naomi.
Yeah.
So of course, ALT, Andre Leon Talley had to get in the mix of everything. And this
Well,
is
I
a
mean, this was
very
his perfect time to read her to filth, honey.
this was a very cutting statement, but it really is very true. I want to say one thing. Dame Anna Wintour is a colonial broad. She's a colonial dame. She comes from British. She's part of the environment of colonialism. She is entitled, and I do not think she will ever let anything get in the way of her white privilege. So, even taking the white privilege words out of it, too stuck in her ways to change and to be leading such a large legacy
Yeah.
company like Condé Nast that really needs to pivot into the 20th
Yeah, she's stuck in her
century,
ways. That's the
that
best way to say it.
her way of doing stuff is not working anymore. And it's especially not
Yeah,
working in this zeitgeist, this now.
for
So
sure.
that's ALT's take. And then what's next? So Daya Prada has had a lot of comments during all of this. The COVID, um, POC issues, really calling people out for various things. There was too much ground to cover, but they did a photo retrospective of American Vogue's most problematic moments. And actually, let's go right to left because left coincides to the next slide. So I didn't like that they were really coming for Grace. This was Grace shot by a interiors magazine. I think it was a British interiors magazine, and it was just at her
Well,
home.
first of all, actually, is that her actual home or is it a set?
No, that's her actual home.
Oh,
I
okay, just want to
think
make sure.
this is her. Oh, I think it says. I don't know if it's her home in the Hamptons or her home in the West Village, but basically people took issues with the Mammy jars that were behind her, which I don't even think are being used. But I hate when people are trying to make something out of nothing. It's like she has these cats. She's obviously into caricatures, of some nature.
And
And
honestly, she probably didn't know the history about it,
right. And,
or doesn't even know what the fuck it is. Someone could have
yeah,
gave it to her.
Grace
Like, I would not be surprised if she doesn't know what the fuck it is. Honestly.
Yeah, Grace has been a huge champion of Edward. Edward worked as a contributing
Yeah,
editor for Vogue for 10 seconds. Anna didn't really get him, of course, but Grace really got him and really saw him. And they had a really great Instagram live a few weeks ago where they were talking about all these POC issues and COVID. And Grace's thoughts just on everything were just so spot on. Because
right.
that's one person who could really get the now, no matter what age. Because, she's older than Anna.
Yeah,
So, if we want to use a good example, that's
yeah.
someone
That's
who
to keep up,
really
honey. Keep up.
keeps up.
Yeah.
So another problematic in Vogue's history was this cover that was about a year or two ago, which made no sense whatsoever in any way, shape, or form, with Scarlett Johansson on the cover, and then this poor Asian model and this poor Indian model basically using her as ornaments, to fill out the photo space, and then these dumb flower crowns on their hair, celebration of global talent, whatever that means. And it was just a mess. It was just a mess. The poses, the way they set them up, the styling, the
Yeah,
choice
like
of
that's, see,
subjects.
now here's the thing. The layout of it, if you will, is similar to British Vogue as far as just like layout and stuff, but the vibe is totally different.
Exactly. And so you could have really put those girls in any number of combinations and it would have been fine. Nobody would have said anything, but it just very much signified white superiority. And, quite frankly, I just find that cover very messy. What I was saying
Well,
about,
yeah, I'm talking, well, not even just that. I'm talking about how messy it is. Like, the styling is not where it needs to be. It's just no, and then it's not crisp. It's not now. It's your eye doesn't know where to go. It's
definitely
not striking.
I don't even know what this is harkening back to, if it's referencing something or if they were trying to do something now. Like you said, I'm just confused. And the other thing is, these two girls, I don't know their names, these models, but this Asian model and this Indian model are gorgeous. You can't even see
and then on
their
top, and then
beauty.
it's just like little things too. And this is what I often think of when I'm doing shoots. But I know for sure that I only think of it because I'm a person of color. So oftentimes when I'm doing a shoot, especially for a brand, and I have, let's say, 2 white models and 1 black model, I often will try, like, or 2 black models and 1 white model. I start thinking, like, am I making too much of a statement, or like too much, like, oh, hey, we have a black person, trying to treat them differently when I do like when I'm staging them. I make sure I'm not like, oh, well, we have to put the black person in the middle because they're the only skin tone, so they have to be in the middle because it anchors them. And that's kind of an old way of thinking.
Right.
But I don't want, I think it's because I'm a person of color. I even think like this, but I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be, they're just people and they're equal. So the 2 white bitches can be next to each other, and then the black person. Like, I don't want the black person has to be in the middle. It's the only way it makes sense. Because to me, that's an old way of thinking. I just want it to be a people. And then it's just like not, and yeah, it may not necessarily be like even, I guess, to your eyes, but that's not what it's about. I just want you to see the 3 models. Like, I don't want you to be like, oh, the black person has to be in the middle just because of color purposes. And then same thing for white. And then for white, I really don't want the white person to be in the middle amongst 2 black people, because then it's just like, oh, well, the white one needs to be in the middle because the white is the important one, or something like that. So it's like things like that I would think you would need to think about. And in this case, it's actually coming off as the white one needs to be in the middle because she's the most important one, because the other 2 are minorities. So it's like, you need to be thinking about that. But if you don't have someone in the room of any kind of diversity, then
I mean,
no
at
one's
the
going to
end
think
of the
about it.
day, it is Scarlett Johansson too. So it's like, obviously her publicist is like,
I
set
don't
the
give
cover.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Even if the publicist says that, you still and honestly, even if there isn't people of color in the room, you still should look back and be like, wait a minute. The 2 people of color are sideways and the white girl's like this in the middle, basically. Like, no one's clocking that and seeing that could potentially be problematic. So it's like, I don't know, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they would have been better off probably just shooting Scarlett by herself, without
Quite
this.
frankly, if you have to use it, you almost might as well just do just her.
Yeah, I mean, it just nothing made about it. It's like, celebration of global talent. What does that even mean?
And then even in the second image, again, my mind thinks about things like that.
Mhm.
The Scarlett, is that Scarlett Johansson? Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. She's the higher up one above the three of them. Do you realize how that reads?
I think this is two separate shots, actually. I don't think it's I don't think they were shot together.
I know
One,
it's
two, three,
it's
four,
two
five,
separate
six,
ones,
seven.
yeah.
I don't think all
But I'm
seven were
saying
shot
in
together.
that second image, she's like higher than the rest of them, than the other
Yeah.
three.
Once again, no sense. Just no sense whatsoever. It just
So
does not
that's what I'm
make
saying. It's just
sense.
like you
You know?
need someone of color at least to be kind of like on the hunt for things like this,
Mhm. So the left image
or
was
at
what
least
I was
someone who
telling
cares,
you
or no,
about.
at least someone with a
This
mind to think about it, huh?
Yeah, the left image was the one that I was telling you about, that illustration. So it was for a 1970 American war
Wait, I think you had a bigger version of it.
propaganda poster. That's the only version I have. I have a bigger version of the cover on the next slide.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah.
but I wanted you to see what they were referencing. So the monkey
Oh,
imagery with, the white blood.
yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah.
and it's, that dress is the same color. It's a strapless dress. The energy that LeBron is giving you is the same as the monkey. And this may have just been a really odd
Well, because
coincidence.
I almost just want to. It's like you want to give the benefit of the doubt that it was an accident. I
Mhm.
would like to, but it's just like when you see an. But the thing is, like, because I mean, I'm not like a king. What is that, King Kong or?
Mm. I think where it's a King Kong-like figure. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
like
it's a
I'm not
large
familiar. I don't like
monkey,
those kind of movies. I'm like a very much a musical kind of girl and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I don't really, I don't. I mean, I think I watched King Kong a while ago, but I don't. I remember like the basic storyline of it. But I feel like if I were in the room, had I not seen that picture that you just showed me, that undertone of it being similar to that would have gone past even me,
Mhm.
just because I don't know. So I was saying you almost need a person of color that's like gonna teach you about like diversity and inclusion and
Right.
just like call out things like that. And you also almost need someone who's like a pop culture or like movie expert who
Yeah.
knows like everything just to like with their references,
And,
because
sometimes I have some empathy for these magazines because, they're just trying to do like the best creative direction they can and whatever
yeah,
coincidence is. And so many people from Daya Prada to all of these like watchdog, people are calling them out that they can't do anything.
yeah,
So they've been called out, for Carly Kloss being dressed as an Asian model. They've been called out for using essential workers after Sandy as quote unquote props,
oh
for
yeah,
Carly once again and Chanel Iman. And I think this was just a really, really weird coincidence.
yeah. I think this
I
one that's what I'm saying. It's like it's one of those things where it's like you, because I really doubt that they saw that and was like, oh, King Kong's holding a white girl. We should get a black guy. Oh, we'll use LeBron and then get a white model and he lift
Mhm.
her and try to recreate this in a fashion way. Like, I would like to believe that's not the case. Like,
Right.
I would like to believe it's an accident, but the green dress is kind of like, oh my goodness, that's one heck of a coincidence. But,
Yeah, I mean,
and
the
even the
color is
energy with the
exactly
mouth
the
open, but
same.
it's
It's
like,
the same.
it's just like, but then again, it's like when you want to use, because they obviously wanted to use LeBron because they're just like, he's so popular.
Yeah,
And
and
then he's,
I get it. I get the energy, he's trying to
mhm.
give and she's giving, with the hair flapping,
Well, here, let's fix it, because
moving
that's
the
my thing.
focus,
I like to fix things.
movement of the photos.
So
I mean, I
how
mean,
can we
it's more of
use
an
the same
interior shot, but
people,
I would have
same
thought it'd be
story,
cute,
and
yeah, if
huh?
like she had the basketball and it's like I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, exactly, something like that. Yeah, because I'm just like, I get it, because you want to use LeBron because it's LeBron, and then you want to use her. So, and then I guess, yeah, the first go to, I suppose, probably in their head was like, oh, he's dribbling while lifting her because she's so tiny. It could be cute, but like, what's another way to do it? I wonder, because even if that image wasn't, even if that image didn't, like, even if we never saw that other image, even the picture on its own, it's like, it's almost still too intense. Like, he
Mhm.
doesn't need
It's
to have
very
that
aggressive.
expression. You know
It's
what I mean?
very aggressive for a Vogue
It's
cover.
very aggressive. Like,
And
keep in mind, it's a
you
fashion
know,
magazine, so I feel like it's actually, if anything, it's also missing fashion. Like, yeah, she has the gown, but it's like, it looks more like Sports Illustrated or something.
yeah, no, it really, really does. Because, yeah, you're so right. I didn't think about that. If you took out the typography for Vogue, it could
Hmm.
be, yeah, like a special edition of like ESPN magazine,
Exactly.
Sports
So let's
Illustrated.
figure out
I
how we can
never
keep the
thought about
same
that.
idea. Let's brainstorm how we can keep the same idea, but make it fashion. So
Right. And even
I would like to
taking,
see him in a
oh, go ahead.
suit
Yeah.
and her in that dress,
Mm-hmm.
and she's dribbling the ball
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to take it away. Something like that.
Or even, maybe they needed to signify, because maybe not necessarily this fashion audience knew who LeBron James was or he was a basketball player. But even like you said, look at the image on the right of George Clooney and her, on this beach, on a boat, looking glamorous. I think she's in Prada. He's probably in Prada. And, it's, why couldn't they be at like a restaurant or,
Well, no. No. They're right about the
he
basketball.
needed,
You need to play to your strengths. He's known as the basketball star. He needs to have a basketball. But especially for the cover, it's like, and as you said, some people might not know. So giving him having the basketball in the shot is what's going to let you know. But you know what? I just need there to be a bridge between fashion and the fact that he's a basketball player. Yeah. So, you know what? Actually, not a full suit. The top half a suit, and then the bottom basketball shorts.
Oh yeah, but that's more something they would do for GQ, not for that. Sorry, my my door just slammed.
What do you mean that's more something for GQ? He's literally wearing only workout clothes in the cover. That's what's making it look like Sports Illustrated.
No, but I'm saying the sort of more comedic covers are more GQ.
That's not comedic. That's editorial, sweetie. How dare you? That's not comedic. If you get the right basketball short, like I'm not talking about like a fucking like loose, long one. I'm talking about like some type of like a short cut or something, and possibly even like make it out of like a, I don't know, maybe not like leather, but like something where you can do like a tuxedo stripe on the side, but it looks like a short. You can clock it as a short, and it's like has like a sporty undertone, and then with the basketball, so it's like you're mixing like fancy, if you will, with sporty, and then it would match her, and it's also speaking to his narrative of him being a basketball player. So it's like you need to. That's quite frankly what a cover should have, though. Like it should have fantasy. Like I can't believe you don't agree. Like that's what it like.
I don't like.
Do you think it's better to
half and
have
half
him
anything.
in full-on workout wear than to bring in some type of fashion onto him? Because behind you, it's a fashion magazine.
I literally would have preferred him in a tux with a basketball and her in that dress than half and half.
But you know what? I'm liking half and half more because at the end of the day, a magazine cover should provoke thought, though. That's going to be more interesting because at that point, it's just like, why the fuck is he holding a basketball?
It's been a while since Vogue has been thought-provoking.
Well, that's true, too.
All right, well, let's move on. All right, so Noor Taglani, she is an Iranian journalist who was misidentified when she did this Vogue story. So she is not a model, let's get that out front and center, but she did a kind of real people story within Vogue, women who have careers, that type of thing. So, but she was identified as a model and an actress. And so, and this was a really big snafu because she is a pretty prominent journalist within her region.
Wait, also side note, you're gonna side note, because I do a lot of shit. You're gonna make me do an editorial when shit opens back up where I have a model in a gown and a guy in the top half to show you how it could have been done.
We've moved on.
I know I can't help it, but I still stand strongly by that because I know it could be really chic. But anyway, continue.
So the reason we're circling back to this woman is that she had come out on page 6 this week saying that back then when the snafu happened, she was very open-minded and like, I accept your apology, blah, 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 blah. But would you like to, maybe have me on a podcast and I could talk about diversity or, maybe some sort of live speak? And Condé Nast and Vogue just said flat out no. They did their canned apologies usual, and they basically swept it underneath the rug. So it just kind of goes to show, and it was a different time period. The POC issues weren't so on the forefront, but it kind of goes to show you it's like they're trying, but nothing's right.
Right.
And these pages go through like layers and layers of copy editing and fact checking, and how did no one on staff catch this till it was printed?
Well, like I was saying, like the reason it's because I believe it's because she's not from the US and they don't know her, so it went on like as you said, so many people fact check, but it's like it's not even fact check. It's just like they don't know her, so they didn't catch it. Like they're just like, oh yeah, she's a model, because they didn't catch it because they don't know her. But if it had it been someone who everyone knows in
In this
America,
day and
then
age, that's totally and completely unacceptable. You could literally, I found imagery of this woman and this whole scandal within 30 seconds of typing in her name in Google. A
yeah,
prominent journalist
but
was
again,
easily Googled.
when someone's has showed them the final version of it, you would need to be, because you're not automatically gonna want to fact check what the editor wrote, because you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I mean, she must be a model. You're not gonna necessarily automatically think that he's wrong,
Mhm.
unless you know who the person is. You would need to be thinking
Right.
like that could even potentially be wrong. But like, for example,
I
like if it was
understand
like
what you're saying by the sort
yeah,
of, it wasn't in their common American, zeitgeist, but I
mhm.
did still find it really, really unacceptable for her to be
I mean, it's
so quickly
unacceptable, but
identified.
it's more so unacceptable for the person who wrote it for
Mhm.
not doing his full research.
Right,
But
exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
the part of not no one else catching it, it's like, well, you almost can't expect them to catch it because it's like they don't know her. But like if it had been like an American person, they probably would have, like you said, like Barbara Walters, and they tried to call her an actress or something to be like, no, she's clearly a journalist, and something like that. Like, but it went past them because they weren't familiar with her. I think that's why.
Yeah.
But the writer is definitely the culprit because he should have done more research. So it's still not acceptable.
Okay, so not only POC issues coming out of the woodwork this week. A writer who I was not very familiar with named Vincenzo de la Torre um, wrote this headline for one of the Asian newspapers that said, "White gay privilege exists in fashion. At Anna Wintour's Vogue, I experienced it firsthand. Protests sparked George Floyd's death and have brought a reckoning for corporate America. Fashion Bible Vogue, its editor-in-chief and owner have come under fire. It lacked diversity when post-fashion editor interned there, but more than that, female colleagues were given a much harder time than men." So if we really want, and then if we really want to get, into the whole damn truth of things, this is part of the article. Google it. It's really, really good. It said it was also a time when a lack of diversity was on par for course at an institution like Vogue. No people of color were on the team during that time, if you exclude the African American and Latin American receptionists who acted as gatekeepers to the hallowed grounds at the 12th floor of 4 Times Square, where Condé Nast was headquartered back then. And then editor at large Andre Leon Talley, who has recently released a memoir which he openly criticizes Wintour and her regime at Vogue. The rank and file of the Vogue team consisted mainly of white, blonde, pretty women from well-off families who often didn't need to work and could afford to live on the meager publishing salaries in the Manhattan thanks to their personal wealth. So,
That
I
makes
mean,
sense. I
that's it
believe
right
it.
there. It's
Yeah,
exactly what we're talking about. If you do not hire a different type of person, even at an entry level of somebody
right.
getting coffee, and that person usually moves up the ranks in one way or another, or moves on to a different magazine or a different publishing house, how on earth do you expect in just publishing?
And this was, he's speaking of his experience in like the 90s, right?
Yeah, no, this is like oh
Or
five,
early 2000s.
early
Oh
2000s.
five.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
five, like
Okay.
post Devil Wears Prada, pre September issue kind of era.
Okay. Now that's bad for then. That's bad for even then. And
Mhm.
now we're talking about now. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess there's more now, but I'm just saying, like, there's some places where that's still the case now. So I can't imagine being the the person in charge of the company, just looking around the office and seeing only white faces, and not ever thinking, just from like a potential like problematic standpoint of getting, it's cancel culture and shit. I'm
Mhm.
surprised no one's ever like just scanned the room and been like, wait, we don't have any people of color. This could
Right.
be a problem later.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You bring that up, and I can't believe I've never talked to you about this, or I wish I would have put this in the slides now. But Bridget Foley, who's the really prominent critic for Women's Wear Daily, who's been there for a long, long time, she had brought this up like 7 years ago, like a really long time. I think it was like right around that time Pyre Moss did that I Can't Breathe jacket, and the more POC issues were seeping into the runway of just what we're talking about. Unless, you're interning and then get into magazine as a fashion assistant or editorial assistant, it's, you need some cushion money to do that. Unless you're coming from a family that could afford that, it's impossible. And let's face it, many POC, can't, or the expectation, from a lot of POC
But I'm
families.
not even just talking about in fashion magazines or anything. I'm talking about every
Oh
company.
yeah, no. All these conversations we're having are umbrella conversations for all the places we freelance and work, no doubt. But what I'm saying is, well, once again, let's just say, I'm
There's
trying.
plenty. There's plenty of black people who are well off as well, because that's a misconception that people will often say. They're all black people. Pretty much, they can't afford to do something like that. So you can't expect them to work at a low cost in a work for like basically nothing at Vogue, because so that's why they're just not out there. No, they're out there. There's out there, or they'll, and if they're not out there, they'll make it work. They just need the opportunity. So both of those things. But not
That's
only are
actually
they
a
out
good
there, but they
statement
also need the
too.
opportunity. Huh?
That's actually a really good statement. That's true, because like I'm from like a very middle class family, but like I made it work, in New York. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like they can make it work. Like there's a good bulk of people that would make it work.
mhm, true. But
So it's like,
nonetheless, his comments spot on, and a lot of people want to, like I'm saying, make these canned statements, make these kind of things that are like testing the waters. But he really just went there and really just said what everybody says,
yeah, he's
behind
definitely not lying.
you know, the backs, because, we just didn't say things like this to people's faces a few years ago.
Right.
So recently, within the past week or so, Samira Nasir, who is the executive fashion director of Vanity Fair right now, is going to become the first woman of color to run Harper's Bazaar. So now we have Nina Garcia at Elle, Samira at Harper's Bazaar, which are both owned by Hearst. And, just looking much better than Condé Nast, in terms of promoting people of color, people with a different worldview, a different experience than that of, these girls, we're talking about these blonde, white, thin, women who have traditionally run these magazines. And, once again, the larger conversation, the larger context of all of this, if we don't have people, POC, within the ranks of these magazines, these fashion houses, these, all these people that supply chain fashion, how do we expect any real change if we do not give these people jobs?
Exactly.
So I'm very curious to see what Samira does with Harper's Bazaar, and especially since she's signing off on the magazine.
That's
In
my
the
light
same
again.
way that I hope that, she really brings some excitement and some color to Harper's Bazaar, because let's face it, that magazine's been very stale and crusty for 2 decades. But I hope that it really does have that Edward British Vogue awakening.
Right.
That would be very beautiful to see, and especially since it has such a beautiful legacy with Fabian Baron and Liz Tilburis, who ran the magazine in the 90s. So it would be
I believe in
great
her to whip it into shape.
yeah, it would be just great. It doesn't need to be the same thing, but it'd be great to see a return to that power and that presence,
Yeah.
make those impactful statements that it did in the 90s.
Well, that's the thing. I would like to see a resurgence of magazines that are provoking thought. Like I said before, I like what paper used to do during the time where they were having editorials that would be breaking the internet, because it was so like, oh my god, like what the fuck am I looking at? But it's like it drew you in, and that's what I think an editorial should do. It should it's not just like, oh, it's cute clothes, you guys should buy this. It's you should buy this, but let me show you how cool it is, like how cool the garment is, and let me show you it in a story narrative. And then you can take it, oh, I like that piece from it, and then adapt it to everyday life. But a editorial at its core really should be fantasy.
Exactly. And that's what we're missing, nowadays. That's why I'm loving what Edward is doing at British Vogue. It's, we can be political, we can talk diversity, we can talk all these serious issues, but where is the fantasy narrative? Where is something to dream, something to get lost into? I think these magazines are talking about this type of thing, but they're not doing that great of job of making a truly impactful statement, whether that's visually or with their words.
Right.
So not only a lot of brouhaha in the publishing world, also at the fashion houses. 5-year-old beloved line, C's Marjan, has closed, even with a billion-dollar backer. They had said that they had a exclusive with Barney's, and now that Barney's is closed, it's just pretty much done. They didn't really have a lot of accounts they were selling to beyond that. But it
Yeah.
was, once again, just very, very sad for American fashion. Beyond Parenza Schuler, no American designer or even a European designer working in the United States, like they were, has really broken to become a really big brand name like Ralph Lauren or Carolina Herrera or Oscar de la Renta. And even those larger brand names like Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, done. So basically,
You said done.
done. Well, I mean, in terms of their main line, in terms of runway.
I don't know about Calvin Klein.
Well, girl, they're not producing runway anymore. They're just producing the just the line they sell at Macy's.
When was their last runway show, actually?
3 seasons ago, whenever Raph was done.
Oh, I guess you're right. But but the sales do well though. I just mean like, aren't they?
But we're
they're
talking about
successful.
at a luxury level. We're only talking
Okay,
about
fine.
that. We're not talking about any mid-tier DKNY.
Because I'm just like, they're at their
Yeah.
height, like their underwear right now. It's like the
Yeah,
thing
no,
to wear
we're
and
not
stuff
talking
like
about
that.
that. We're only talking about runway luxury. I'm talking about
Okay,
like
fine.
the store, the Calvin Klein store that used to be next to Barney's, those type of clothes. That's the only thing we're talking
Okay,
about.
then yeah.
So, where is the luxury fashion? Even at a mid-tier, we're going to get into Diana Furstenberg's
Yeah, you're right about the
trouble.
luxury. Yeah, because Calvin doesn't. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we're going to get into
Luxury,
Diana
yeah.
Furstenberg's troubles next. But even from this contemporary to this high end, people are dropping left and right. I made a joke on my Instagram the other day about there's the only thing that's going to be left is the Kirkland brand at Costco. What people laughed about in Kiki, but I'm really being serious. If we don't buy
And Target, bitch. This is Target.
yeah. If we don't buy these things, if we don't support these people, even on sale, it's
Well, they need to start making shit more on sale often, bitch.
Well, and that's another thing. People are really worried about survival right now. People are worried about basic needs, rent.
They are worried about basic needs.
Food. That type of thing.
But as things start to open, people are going out more. They're gonna be like, oh, I've been inside for so long wearing pajamas. It's like I want to dress up now. So I do believe that eventually they will start.
I hope so. I really, really do, because I cannot take any more banal. I just cannot take any more sad runway fashions, or just, everything is just such a bore. And their line really presented color and life and joie. And
They did.
I just really loved it, and he's a disciple of Dries, and I love Dries. And, it was just very exciting to see in the American market, because there's not much to talk about. A few years ago, Karen Royfield said New York Fashion Week had the charm of a medical convention. And that's really true, because it's just one big trade show. It's not presenting anything exciting. So, and look at just our conversation topics. We haven't, when we used to freelance together and we used to sit together at lunch, we used to watch the runway shows and banter about them, and we haven't done that in months, because
well, I mean, there also hasn't been shows.
Right. There ain't been nothing to talk about, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Whether they weren't doing shows, there weren't enough shows, there were shows and they were just too much of a bore. We'd rather talk about Drag Race.
Yeah, I haven't been like inspired or really into a show and seen a show that was like, oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah, we haven't done that in at least a year and a half,
Yeah, because there hasn't been anything that really wowed me.
Mm-mm. So that was very sad for them. And then big names are, no longer, safe anymore. Definitely, Diana Furstenberg has definitely had her troubles, in recent years. No one is not saying that. But she has laid off 75% of her 400-person staff, and she's closing 18 of her 19 shows.
But see, honestly, this is one of those things where it's like, Corona was like the last straw for her. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, don't get me wrong, a wrap dress, it's timeless from her. It's going to help pretty much every body type, get them into shape, make them snatched. And, an older lady, not even necessarily an older lady, but it's always going to compliment an older lady. who's like self-conscious about her body. It's always great for things like that. And she has really good prints as well, and all of that. But, and granted, she does have other things more than the wrap dress in her collections, but that's what she's known for. But even the other things that she had in her collections, while some of them were, yes, a little bit more now, but for the most part, it's still, everything still has felt a little bit dated still. And it's almost as though she's kind of stuck where she shined and can't stray from that. And she hasn't adapted the mind of now.
Right.
And it's fine because, like I said, there are still women who would wear that, but in order to thrive, you need to really adapt it now.
It's very hard to work for a living designer. A lot of my friends, from the design room to people who work in marketing, it's very hard to be like, we shouldn't do that to a person that's living. It's much easier, with the, Cristobal Balenciaga, who's been dead in the ground,
Yeah,
for
but it's also
decades.
like, but I know, I get it, but it's also like, girl, do you want to sit back and
Right.
see it, what you started, or do you want to make money?
Right.
Okay, we want to make money, step
They
aside, let us
attempted
get
to
this
change.
together, honey.
They brought Jonathan Saunders in for a few seasons. It had that really great vintage feel. But, once again, it's very hard when the person is still living and can't really let go. But
Like
you're exactly right.
I'm almost like, shouldn't she break it down like into like, maybe make like that DVF wrap dress, known aesthetic with the prints, almost like a smaller category, and then make the new brand like totally rebranded,
Right.
like so that the people who like that can still have a little bit of it, but then her new brand is like now, and she's whipped it together to now.
It's kind of like Mark by Marc Jacobs versus Marc Jacobs, the brand. And once they took
Well, no, I mean, Mark by Marc Jacobs, that was if you were Poe. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm just kidding. But it was the
it was
affordable
the same
version.
price point as DVF. But what I'm saying is, once they got rid of Mark by Marc Jacobs, the whole identity of the company.
It was not the same price point as DVF. I have a T-shirt from Mark by Marc Jacobs that was $70, honey.
Oh, you're talking about the really cheap stuff at the little stores, the little
yeah, I'm saying they had the
I'm
options
talking
for
about
really
like the runway line, like where.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm saying that, but they
$500.
also had affordable stuff. DVF doesn't have anything affordable. No shade.
DVF's
I mean, it
dresses
has
are about
affordable enough,
$4.98.
but I'm just saying you can't get a shirt for like $20. I
I
literally have Marc Jacobs rain boots that I got for like $30.
Right, yeah, he had all those little tchotchkes, which is great, and
Yeah,
that
the
era is kind
tchotchkes.
of over as well for him. But nonetheless, the DVF an icon. Sad.
Oh no, she's definitely an icon. Well, that's why I would like to see it succeed. So I'm just like, how can we get her back big again? And it's just like it's rebranding, and it's almost like, do we need to, like, do you think like the younger generations, like, well, that's an old lady. It's almost like, do we need a new face? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I think the granddaughter's getting involved now, and I think she did a capsule collection. Her name's Tatiana von Furstenberg. So they call her TVF, which I love. So, but that's what you need. Maybe just that young eye would help her. She was working for her full time, so we
because
wish
like a lot of
TVF well.
the young queens, well, not the young queens, the young people, they don't like, they're like, well, who's DVF? And they don't know the history of like how like legendary she is. But it's like, and then when they do find out about her, it's like, oh, it's the old lady, and she has like those old lady dresses, basically, no shade. So it's like, how do we kind of like show them? You could like show them the new her, like, well, you need to make a new her, but something that they can relate to, because like they kind of can't, no shade, like they can't relate to that.
Yeah. Well, DVF not the only one having problems. So Moda Operandi, a trunk show model site, and then also does sell high-end luxury clothes in the vein of Net-a-Porter, has recently let go of 29% of its staff. So, and Fast Company has really alluded to the Grateful Exit, how to shutter a business when the pandemic forces closure. But I think a lot of these companies, COVID's kind of a convenient excuse to be like, we're not doing well,
Right.
we're laying off staff, we're closing stores, this is happening, we're cutting salaries. And overall, it's just leading to
For some brands, it was COVID was literally the get out of jail card.
but ultimately, I think it's just sad. It's sad there's less magazines. It's sad there's less designer lives. It's sad there's less store. There's just less and less tangible experiences, whether that's turning a page, going to a store, feeling the fabric. If you walk in downtown, San Francisco right now, it's a ghost town, between Barney's closing, Neiman's is going to close soon, which is a really iconic building in San Francisco. Macy's has closed one building, Forever 21. Even a store that I really loved and championed, Union Made, has closed.
Wait, Neiman's is closed?
Neiman's isn't closed yet, but they're
I was like, wait,
pretty much toying. They're between bankruptcy. It's been on the burner for years. But, even the Rotunda and the restaurant, I mean, that would just be a shame, that people couldn't experience Union Square and experience the Rotunda, at Neiman Marcus. I just think that would just be very, very sad. So
you get rid of Neiman's, at that point we have basically no luxury department store left.
It would just be Saks. Saks would be the one left. So
just
there.
One.
And just, even in terms of space, what are they going to do with those buildings? Is it going to become a WeWork space? Are they going to, chop it up into multiple stores? Even Gumps, a long-standing San Francisco, institution that was for China and, wedding gifts and things of that nature, has closed in recent years. So it's just, like I said, less tangible experiences where you can go physically pick up a product, see, beautifully.
I will say, though, it's also because we are moving towards online shopping though in general.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I online shop too. I'm a Prime member. I buy things off of Mr. Porter. There's a time and a place, but I do.
Yes, honey, your collection of purses from Mr. Porter.
Why are you still mad about my damn PS1 bag I got at the Barney's fire sale?
She will lug a tote, honey. You guys have never seen her come in just strut with a tote.
I'm going to show them my new bag.
You got a new one, no less?
I did, girl. I got her at the fire sale at the Barney's,
girl. Oh yeah. Oh.
I just carried her to San Diego.
Yes, Miss Shane will have a bag, honey, on you guys.
All right. So, I wore this shirt today, and this is basically the thesis. Dare to resist racism, sexism, and homophobia.
Right.
It really is about, the best person for the job, bringing in people of color for the job, so there's diversity.
Well, the best person for the job, but quite frankly, the best person for the job, but also, I want to say that there comes a point where you need to basically, the best person for the job should always be a factor, but there should also come a point where you're just like, we are lacking people of color. We now need to hire only people of color and make sure they're the best person for the job out of the people of color. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I do believe there needs to be a point where you start hiring people not just for the sake, but hiring people so that you have more diversity. So you actively are looking for people of color to hire because you're lacking it, quite frankly. And that's fine to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you see the metrics of some of these larger companies like Facebook, it's like 85% white, 10% Asian, and then 5% everything else. I didn't get that exactly, but it just... we have to do better than that. We have to. I see and I know enough Ivy League and top college graduates who are POC who could fit any of these roles at any of these companies. I know enough personally. So, and, passed over for one reason or another. So, and it's exactly like Anna said, there was some sort of truth in her statement. Like she said, it cannot be easy to be, a person of color at these companies. It really cannot, and it's very hard to find a welcoming environment if you are, different in any way, shape, or form, which is why we want to have to, again, to dare to erase racism, sexism, and homophobia.
Right.
All right, so we got a new fun topic next time. We're going to talk about All Stars 5, Episode 2. So we're really
Yes.
excited about that. All
Yes.
right, okay, we'll see you
Stay
next
tuned
time.
and subscribe below, you
Subscribe.
guys. Okay. And if you guys are a white person watching this and you haven't subscribed, that means you're racist. No, I'm just kidding. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.